Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for the Fab with Foil blog hop at ScrapnStamp.ca. I have questions about Bristol's cardstock quite a bit, and this is just to let you know that there are two different kinds of Bristol. There's a smooth finish and a vellum finish. A smooth is for inks, pens, markers, watercolor markers, and the other is more for dry media like charcoal, color pencils, those kinds of things. So starting off, I took a sheet of Bristol Smooth cardstock, fired brick, and candy apple distress inks, and I blended those on almost the full sheet. I'm using Ranger foil, which is really good. You can use it with your fingers or with a popsicle stick or a tongue depressor, anything that's smooth. No need for a laminating machine or anything like that. The packet that I had didn't have red or gold or any of the typical colors that would go with a Valentine card, which is what I'm making for my husband. And so I had to think of a way to make what I had look more like a gold. So the closest I had was an orange sheet of foil, and in order to tone down the orange you would have to have an orange base red, which is what the candy apple red is. So I applied that, and you'll see just how nice it looks as this progresses. You don't have to have a really smooth blend with distress inks. I'm just kind of a nitpicky type when I do anything, so I kind of overwork this, but it's okay. It still looks good, but I'm just trying to tell you, you don't have to go this particular with what you're doing. So I wanted to make one end a darker red so I could see how the black looked against it, and then after I finish with the bottom part of that, I reintroduce the candy apple red. So the first 2 inches are really just the fired brick. I spritz some water, and I didn't really matter too much where it went, and then I'm wicking it off with some kitchen towel and then drying it with a heat gun, making sure that you don't scorch it because it's easy to do. And then I just run this in a few different directions. Now I'm bringing in the oxide inks in the same colored fired brick and candy apple, applying the fired brick down at the bottom, continuing with the same layout of color as I did with the ordinary distress inks. And then once I have that where I want it, I carry on with the candy apple red. They look quite different than the regular or ordinary or first distress inks that we had the pleasure of using. In the candy apple, you just want to make sure that you blend the two in at the line so you don't have really a distinct line, and that's really all that you're doing, and then you're just applying the color up to the end of the sheet. You can see here that it blends together nicely. You can't really tell where one starts and the other one stops after you've worked them in a little bit. And the candy apple covers the whole sheet right to the very end. I'm going to apply some more water with the sprayer, and then I'll wick it off and have a look to see if I need to apply any water anywhere else, if I've missed a spot. And I think that I have, so I apply some more quite liberally, and then you wick that off and dry it exactly the same as the first time. Now I'm back to the regular or first distressed inks that we've had, and I'm applying the fired brick just scantily at the bottom, and the candy apple really is what's on all of it. The fired brick only did one little bit at the bottom, not even 1/4 of an inch. And now I've got a pretty good blend, and as you can see, you can't tell where there was heavy-handed or where it was scant. It looks fine, just the way it is. And Distress inks move wonderfully on Bristol Smooth. So if you're having trouble with blending and you have the Bristol, check to see if it's the vellum and try to get yourself a pack of the Smooth. And more than just Strathmore, make it as well. I haven't had much luck with the Concord or the, my goodness, what's it called? Anyway, the other one in the blue. I haven't had much, Canson, I haven't had much luck with that vellum. And here I am just applying a little more of the fired brick towards the end. And that was just the first Distress inks that we've had the pleasure of using. So I had a look at my stamps, and I decided that I didn't want to play with my photopolymer or my rubber stamps with the glue pad, so I found an acrylic stamp pad by Crate Paper, and I used that instead, and I used the ink stamp pad. You have to apply the ink at each use. So I tried the black on the bottom, and I decided that I really didn't like it, so now I've moved on to the orange. So with stamping this acrylic stamp, they don't work as well as the photopolymer, so any spots that are missed here are really operator error, because this foil from Ranger works really well. And then lining it up, I tried to have a straight line there, and it worked out. It might not be perfect 100%, but I'm happy with how it's stamped. So these come in little sheets, almost as big as a card front, and you just apply it. You can apply it with your finger. I have a tongue depressor or a wide popsicle stick that I'm using here that you can get in craft stores or even dollar stores. And so yeah, I'm just giving this a rub. And the good part is that if you miss any spots, you can come back and work with them after too. I mean, I've done that. You'll see that here. And like I say, any issues are really the stamp and the ink pad and the operator, and not the foil, because it comes off wonderfully. I mean, you don't really have to work too hard to get it off, and just normal pressure on the end of that popsicle stick works wonderful. And what's great about it is you can see right through you've had a good transfer of the foil onto the paper. And as you can see, now that we have a little bit of it laid down, the orange and the red background cancels out a lot of the orange on the paper, and it comes away with almost like a bronze, brass, kind of gold color, which is really what I was looking for, because I like red and black and gold on a card, especially for a masculine card, which is what this is, a masculine Happy Valentine's Day card. And now I'm removing my pencil line. That's a white eraser. Make sure your eraser is clean before you bring your eraser to all the work that you've done. At this point, it'd be a shame to ruin it. So I've got out my Fiskars trimmer, and I'm giving it a slice, because that's the end that I wanted to use. And now I've sized it for a card, taken the MFT Love die and cut love out of the center of the card front. I also cut love out of black foam. This is just ordinary fun foam that you buy in packages at craft stores, department stores, and they probably even have it at various dollar stores. And I'm keeping the letters as well as the center of the O. And it doesn't really matter where you tape that down on the foam. So I bring that to my die cutting machine. I have both of them cut, and then I just take the candy apple and I go around the outside edges of my card front. I don't want it too deeply colored, but enough that it takes away the white. You don't want to distract the eye. And then I'm applying, this is another Ranger product, Glossy Accents. I find on the foam you want to have something that's not going to stay wet too long, but is super sticky. And I apply my card front to a piece of foam. Now this is a little shorter width-wise and a little longer lengthwise, so I have to cut this off with a long pair of scissors. Now I'm matching up the letters, so the red colored letters that were cut out first onto the foam. And I'm using the Glossy Accents as well as a glue pen. I should have used the glue pen a little more so that I didn't get the adhesive on the tips of a couple of the letters, which I take off later. And I'm pretty finicky. I want to make sure everything is lined up perfectly. So I have the L and the V done there, and now I'm working on the O. If you're going to do this, make sure that you don't put foam to the back of the center of the O. That needs to lay flat onto the foam because we want these letters to have dimension. Now, my husband doesn't like glitter and sequins or anything too much on cards, especially when they're for him. So this foil was just enough to add a little bit of pizzazz. If you're going to make this card, obviously you can decorate this and embellish this however much you like, but men typically don't like to have too much flash and bling, at least the men in my life. So this is why I did this card this way, and this is a basic form so that you'll be able to take it and do it however you like. And now that I've got the O glued, I attach that. Also, another hint is that however you cut the foam, make sure you have it up the same way when you apply the back of your printed paper cutout to the foam cutout. So if you get it flipped, it's not going to glue the way you want, which is what happened here with the letter E. So I realized that when it wouldn't line up, and I redid it. And I just applied a little bit of pressure, and now that that's set, I'm taking the candy apple and ever so lightly going over the top of the letters. Try to keep the blending tool level so that you don't dip down and hit the card at all with the blending foam. You just want to tickle the top of the letters, or image if you're using an image instead of the letters. So that's the front pretty much complete. I'm sure that I'll have to add a little bit of color here. And then I'm trimming off the extra foam that's hanging off the end. As I said, it was a little too wide, but it's fine. Now I'm cutting my card base, so this is going to be a top fold landscape card. Using Lawn Fawn heart dies, I cut these out of the distress inked sprayed paper and the black foam as well. And bring them back from the die cutting machine. The great thing about this little die is that it does an assortment of sizes. And I kept it all together so that I could cut them all out in one pass. Now I'm just matching the foam with the die cuts. And I've cut an inside panel, and I'm stamping this also with the same acrylic stamp from crepe paper and the glue pad. Down the bottom it had I blank you, and in the center I'm going to stamp Happy Valentine's Day. Now I decided to use the black because the orange would have looked really orange, and make this look like it was written by hand, because the stamp is really handwritten. And then, as you can see here, I didn't have enough glue onto the stamp, and I'm going to work this so that I can get better coverage. And this is all you have to do with this foil. It really is fab foil. I go over this a few times because I want to make sure that I have it, no spots where it's blank, where you have little spots that have no coverage, which kind of ruin the look of all of it. So I'm working hard with that little piece of foil, but with the popsicle sticks, it's a breeze. You really just have to apply, ordinary pressure. And as I mentioned, the great thing about it is you can see the transfer through the foil. So I had some of this holographic color, and I thought, well, I'll add some of that onto the letters so that I'll have a little bit of glitz on there, but not too much. And it's hard to pick up on this camera, but I've tried to take a shot of it too with my phone, and it didn't show too well either. But when you hold it in your hand and the sun shines on it, you can see it skips over the top of the letters. It's really quite nice. And now I'm going to select a heart, and it says I heart you. And my little pokey tools there is removing any glue that I might have extra that I don't want, and I just set that on there for a couple of minutes to have that on there nice and firm. I trimmed it down a little bit because it was a little bit larger. I wanted to have a perimeter around it, and then I cut an Impression Obsession heart border die and applied that to the inside. Now that the foam has dried securely onto the front panel, I'm going to apply some funky glue to the back of this foam, and I'm being quite liberal so that it's lit here nicely. This glue is not all that wet, so it won't warp your card if you have to put a lot on for the foam. And then I'm just letting that have a little bit of a perimeter all the way around. Got a little bit of glue up there at the corner, which I'll remove. And that's a look at the card. And here's the inside with that Impression Obsession heart border and the dimension. So there's dimension on the inside and the outside. So here are the supplies I used: Sakura pen, the mono eraser, my glue pad, the foil sheets. There's the orange. It is very orange when you see it. And then that's the Impression Obsession die, the Lawn Fawn die, MFT die. I'll put links below to the Canadian retailers and US retailers. The distressed ink, the glossy accents, the blending brushes, and then finally the card again. It's cute. my husband likes it, so that's the main thing, and the fact that the foil looks lovely. So thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.